But you talk to everybody in the league. Everybody answers your calls and tells you what's the league saying about Tom Brady and his recent struggles.
That this is one of the weakest supporting casts he's had around him in 18 years of starting in New England. You've got whatever it is, 75% of Rob Gronkowski. You traded away your best wide receiver. You tried in Brandon Cooks. You tried to invent a franchise receiver in Josh Gordon, and he obviously, as he has throughout his career, imploded, and he's gone. So, the Patriots do not have the kind of targets that other quarterbacks in the league have for their very good quarterbacks. Andrew Luck's got T.Y. Hilton. He's got Eric Ebron. You look at the targets in Kansas City. Look at the weapons everywhere. You even look at the weapons in Chicago for Trubisky. And Tom Brady doesn't have that. I would dare say that the weapons that Tom Brady has, if you lined up, 1 to 12 in playoff teams, he wouldn't be in the top 8 or 9 for his weapons. So, and again, I'm not saying I don't think Brady has played well, and I think he would be the first one to say that compared to other years, he really hasn't been great. That's one of the reasons I think Josh McDaniels has done a fantastic job week by week by week, figuring out with different game plans every week who to feature, what to do. And so I think the Patriots are still going to be a tough out in the playoffs, but this is not the same New England team, and you're right about that, Doug.
The Bears travel to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Vikings in a clear must-win situation in order to get into the playoffs. Kirk Cousins statistically has performed really, really well, with the exception of primetime games, obviously. And I think to anybody who looks at it reasonably, hey, the quarterback market was slim last year in terms of free agency. They got the best one. They weren't even the highest bidder towards Kirk Cousins. But how important is Sunday for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings?
I'm glad you asked that question. I think of all the players in the NFL in Week 17, the one with the most pressure on him to play well and to win a game for his team in some difficult circumstances, because the Bears are good, obviously, the one with the most pressure on him is Kirk Cousins. No question about it. Remember 2 years ago when he left Washington, and, basically was I should say, when he was thought to be leaving Washington at the end of 2016, they play a game against the Giants. He plays horribly. If they win, they're in. They're not in the playoffs. Then he leaves Washington this year, and he goes to Minnesota, and Minnesota pays $28 million a year. They don't pay that to have good statistics and to lose a win and you're in game against the Chicago Bears, a division rival. He's got to win this game. And again, what's going to happen if he doesn't win the game? Not a lot. He's still going to be the quarterback of the team. But it's going to be a very, very dark day in Minnesota if they don't make the playoffs after going as far as they did last year with Case Keenum. They spend a lot more for Kirk Cousins, and he doesn't get them to the playoffs. That would be a bad day for Kirk Cousins.
How surprised are you at the Seahawks resurgence this season, considering last year, end of the year, destroyed really by the Rams? There was the embarrassing loss that preceded that to the Jaguars, kind of the end of the Legion of Boom. And here they are, kind of back in play. Russell Wilson on Sunday Night Football, running around, making incredible plays downfield. They seem to fix the offensive line, fix the running game, defense with more no-names that they were able to go get. How surprising have the results been to you, Peter?
Well, I am the worst soothsayer in NFL media history. My predictions stink. But when I left the third preseason game between Seattle and Minnesota, where the ones played against each other into the third quarter, when I left that game, I remember thinking, man, the Seahawks look a lot better than I thought they would be. And I thought the Seahawks would be okay. I wasn't sure they'd be a playoff team, but I thought they'd be okay, 500 or maybe a little bit better. And the reason is something that Pete Carroll told me after this game. And he said, Peter, here's what is great for us now. We can really have like the competition Wednesday that I got used to having at USC and I got used to having early on in my Seahawks career. If you're paying players huge money, you can't go into every Wednesday during the practice week and say, hey, whoever plays best in practice this week, you're getting a lot of snaps on Sunday. It doesn't exist when you have 3/4 of your secondary making $8 or $10 or $11 million. And when you have big salary guys on your, all over your depth chart. So I think the Seahawks are happy to get back to more of a blue-collar, non-star team than they've had in the past. And it's shown this year. I think the Seahawks are going to be a very tough out, almost no matter where they play.
I completely agree with you. Last thing, the Eagles now need to win against the depleted Washington Redskins this weekend, and Foles is once again going to be their quarterback. Now, Doug Peterson came out yesterday and said that Carson Wentz is, in fact, their guy. Is there any question about Carson Wentz being their guy if they get to the playoffs this year?
No, I mean, I don't think so, Doug, because they have basically put all their chips on the table with Carson Wentz. They're going to try to sign him at some point to a long-term contract near the top of the market. And you can't sign two quarterbacks to do that. And I know everybody's going to say, well, Foles this, Foles that. And Nick Foles has been fantastic. And on another team at another time, the Eagles would say, man, we're lucky to have Foles. He's our guy. But just remember, about 57 weeks ago, one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in football was Carson Wentz. He didn't forget how to play quarterback. He just had injuries this year that didn't allow him to play quarterback at a Carson Wentz type level. Mm-hmm. And unless the team doctor, tells Howie Roseman, Doug Peterson that, hey, there's something wrong, there's something chronically wrong with Carson Wentz, I doubt sincerely they're going to have any sort of second thought. And I think that more likely Nick Foles is going to be the quarterback of pick one. Tampa, Jacksonville, Miami, the Giants, Washington, whoever in 2019 and beyond.
Peter King from NBC Sports. We await your MVP pick next week. We got Black Monday, which we know is coming next week. And, of course, the playoffs will be set on Sunday night after the game on NBC Sports. Peter King of NBC Sports, thanks so much for joining us here in The Herd.
Thank you, Doug.
Pleasure is all mine. It should be pointed out that one of the reasons that Carson Wentz was kind of pushed back to playing a little bit before he might have actually been ready was not just Carson Wentz, was that Nick Foles was awful in the preseason and awful earlier on in the season. Obviously, he's played well recently, but he's Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? Short term, great dude. Totally understands who he is and what he is. Long term, we fall in love with what we've seen most recently when NFL teams would tell you it's Wentz and it's not really close. He's still nursing the knee, and of course now